And we're live. So the whole idea of a block not being a block, but actually being an attack to the opponent's hand, that was an eye-opener for me when I was first introduced to it. Many years later, that initial exposure has led to a much more increased overall understanding and appreciation for not just Filipino Kali and or Jeet Kune Do, but for martial art in general. Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel. Welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast number 79. This is the one about JKD and its associated disciplines. This is part 9, and today we're going to talk a little bit about Filipino Kali and single stick. So as you're logging in, you guys know the deal. Say where you're logging in from, please. Hit the like button, continue to hit the like button if everything's cool, and Facebook will think that we're having fun and they will assign some relevance to what we're doing. So where do I start to expound on the benefits of single stick in Kali? Because a lot of people out there still don't understand why Kali is in the JKD world, what it could possibly do there. And if you doubt me, earlier today I was on with my JKD senior, Chris Kent, and if you go take a look at that video and you scroll through the thread, you'll see some of what I'm talking about. But I'll straighten that out for you now, like I started doing 2 weeks ago. There's so much we could talk about. There's so many directions in which we could go. And so inevitably I'm going to leave something out. So, you know, somebody who hears this later, they'll go, oh, but he didn't talk about this and he did talk about that. I know that in advance, that I'm going to leave something out. So what I decided we would talk about today is, you could call it the fundamental motions or the three basic motions of Filipino Kali or what have you, right? And what I'm talking about is initial block, right? So kind of like this, safety factor, and then the killing blow, right? I have help today. So that comes from this infamous or famous magazine, Fighting Arts, of March 1976, where there was a thing about Kali in here, and it was a story on Tuhon Ben Largusa and the Kali Association. So it's, where did I say it was? Page 18? No, page 16, right? So I don't know if this thing is still available online or not, but if it is, you guys would be well served to get your hands on it. So in 1976, when I first saw that, truth be told, it didn't make any sense to me. I had no idea what they were talking about. But 7 years later, in '83, when after I had started spending time with Sifu Dan, then of course I went back to that magazine and started looking at what they were talking about, and that's when it started to make a little bit more sense, right? So we're talking then about the stick hand, and we're talking about three motions essentially of inward, backhand, and backhand, which we talked about last week in the double stick section, right? So initial block, safety factor, killing blow, we assign those names to it, but when we assign directions, then it's inward, backhand, and backhand. Okay, makes sense, right? It's important that you keep up with me on this, right? So there is that element of three, which again is something that we talked about last week. So of course, that means then that we could substitute hand or foot, right, for inward or backhand. So then that element of three, maybe we can go hand, hand, foot, right? Foot, hand, hand, foot, whatever, right? Okay? But let me not get too far ahead of myself. Miguel is on here, and Miguel knows that I'm famous for going off on tangents, as I did last night, right? All right, so last week we talked about coordination drills. I think we did, right? Did we talk last week about coordination drills and combat drills and flow drills and freelance? I don't remember, but hopefully we did. If not, we'll talk about it now. Coordination drills or Amara patterns, as they're called, the terminology in some methods, right? Of which in my curriculum here at Unified Martial Art in Miami, there are 4 fundamental patterns, right? There's the figure 8, there's the loptic or the slash family, as we call it. There's the redondo, which is the big repeating circle, and then there's the abanico, which is like the fan in motion, right? So it was actually the understanding that not all of those movements, right? Figure 8, loptic, redondo, and abanico. Not all of those motions translate into sword motion or into blade motions. They're all stick motions, but they're not all blade motions, and that's actually what clued me into the fact that that also applies to weapon being translated into empty hands. So it's only some aspects of empty hands that should be or can be translated from the weapons application, right? Again, important for you to stick with me on this. This is the application of what I call the Jeet Kune Do educated eye, right? So it takes JKD to help you to understand some stuff in Kali and maybe even vice versa, right? So if we use the downward figure 8 as an example, right? So downward figure 8, I go inward, backhand, inward. So as I train those motions, right? Inward, backhand, inward. What's happening to this hand is that this hand is being educated in how to hit maybe even 3 times in succession from different angles. You know, so maybe I'm able to come up with, straight punch to back fist to hook, right? Jab to hook to uppercut or whatever. But we're talking about multi-angle strikes with the same hand. That is something that could be attained from inward backhand, inward downward figure 8, right? So that is a coordination drill, the downward figure 8. Now there is a thing called that I got this from Cas Magda, the application of the coordination drills. So when that happens, you're taking something that was formerly a coordination drill and now you're converting it into what we call in Miami a combat drill, because now it is the application of the movements. So it's no longer building up coordination or what have you. Now it's how to actually use the bloody thing, right? So because that's what you want to do. You always want to take the skills that you acquired at one level and then move them up to another level in application. So that's why we have coordination followed by combat, followed by flow, followed by freelance, right? For example. Okay, so combat drills. We talked about initial block, safety factor, killing blow. Now, do you remember what I said last week about the lead hand usage versus the rear hand usage? Because inward, because I have the weapon in the lead hand, so that initial block, which can be a hit, is being applied with the lead hand. So it's lead hand, rear hand, and then lead hand again. But when it comes to empty hands, I might not want to do that. I might not want to go lead hand as the parrying hand, because now I might be in my own way. So what we do, instead of going right hand, right hand, we go left hand first. Because now I can go inward, backhand, backhand. But this is an empty-handed application of what was formerly stick motion. But it's still inward, the directions are still the same. But I'm not starting with the right hand, I'm starting with the left hand, because I'm following, let's call it JKD principle of rear hand being responsible for most of the defending and lead hand being responsible for most of the offending. So it's still inward, backhand, backhand. Now we take that and we govern it now, right, by what's called the 5 methods. We call it the 5 methods of counter offense. So we're going to look at 2 of the 5. So there is block and hit, or what Bruce Lee called touch and go. So I go inward, backhand. You see? So now that is 2 motions. I parry and then I hit. What if I step that up from touch and go, right, from block and hit, to simultaneous parry and hit? It is still inward and backhand, so to speak. I hope I don't knock over this microphone, right? But now, instead of going 1 followed by 2, I go 1, because I'm using simultaneous parry and hit. So now maybe because I've introduced that element of simultaneity, it's a word, maybe I can go 1, and when I go backhand with this one, I can hit again. So now I make 2 motions and I get 2 hits. So I'm stepping up the ladder. I'm going higher up on the rungs of the what I call the ladder of efficiency, okay? I know it's tough to understand all of this with me sitting on a stool, right, waving my hands in the air. But that's why, as I'll tell you in closing, we're doing the video series on this whole associated discipline thing, right? So let me finish with this, right? Because we're looking at what this rear hand is doing. In Filipino Kali, this carries different names. One particular name from Sifu Insano's book, right? So again, if you're not old school and you don't have this, too bad for you. Do what you can to get your hands on it, right? So in here, page 108, I'm not even going to try to open this up for you because this thing is so fragile. If I do, because you guys might know that these two come from the same era. So you've seen what has happened to this one, right? Yeah, so I can't handle it happening to this one. So I'll just tell you that it's on page 108, and it's a chapter entitled the Alive Hand Specifics, right? So there are, I think it's 6, let me make sure. Retain and check, because this hand, right, the safety factor is called checking, can be called trapping or what have you. So, but as far as terminology used in that book, it is retain and check, ascending check, descending check, push and check, pat and slide, and the hit and check. So there are 6 energies assigned to the checking hand in Sifu Insano's book, right? So I copied it out because I want you to listen to the descriptions of each of those alive hand specifics, and then you tell me if you think they would have or could have applicability outside of the realm of weaponry, right? Or outside of the realm of Filipino Kali into other things. So the retain and check, just enough pressure is applied to keep the opponent's hand in place. It can be a short push or a beat, a sustained push, or even a grab. That's the retain and check. Descend and check. The opponent's hand is lowered into the strike or makes way for a strike on the higher line. Okay? Ascend and check, well, the exact opposite. The opponent's hand is lifted into the strike or makes way for a strike on the lower line. If there's any that I think might not have direct translation into empty hands, it's the ascend and check. But we'll determine that when we do the video stuff. The push and check, listen to this one. A quick pat or a sustained push with enough energy to send the opponent's hand away from the patting hand. So when I do this, it sends his hand away from my hand, giving me enough time and clearance to deliver a strike. Can also be a sustained push that jams the opponent's arm, stopping it before he can make a strike. I don't know, that sounds a little bit like interception to me. Anyhow, let's move on and finish up, right? Pat and slide. So the pat and slide delivers a quick beat on the opponent's arm to check it, to lower it, and then it continues toward the opponent to make a hit. The emphasis, this is taken right from this book, I'm not making these words up. The emphasis is on a constant forward energy. Where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, Wing Chun and Pencak Silat, right? Constant forward energy, constant forward pressure. Maybe even when people talk about resistive opponents, there's a thing about pressure and forward energy. Anyhow, let's finish this. The pat and slide can be performed palm up, palm down, open-handed, or closed fist, right? And then the hit and check, the last one. Normally, the alive hand is a back backup for the main weaponed hand. You dig that? But sometimes it can leave its secondary role to deliver a strike at any time during combat. That might mean that when we were talking about it being the backup hand, the defending hand, maybe there's a way to transform this thing from being secondary in nature or defensive in nature to being offensive or counter-offensive, even if it's still carried in the rear position. Now, like I said, it's tough to get all that from me sitting on a stool, so that's why we will produce the companion video to all of this, right? I'm going to leave it there for today, but don't think for a second that I'm done. Next week, we might take a look at stick and dagger, right? Also known as long and short, but we'll have to see, right? In any case, if you want to be informed about the video series, send me a link or just put your email address in the comments here, or send me an email at jkdrebel@gmail.com, and I'll add you to the notification list, right? What else? Feel free to share, like, comment, ask questions. I'll go through everything once we're done and re-comment if necessary. I'll sign up for notifications for when we go live here on Facebook, and then when we put the final edit video up on the YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods, on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods, at ilovejeetkundo.com. Quick Skills Series Volume 1 still available. Coming up on Friday the 31st, May 31st. I'm pretty sure it's at 6 p.m. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's at 6 p.m. Jeet Kune Do Dialogues episode number 70, I think, with Dean Lessie of the Dubuque Martial Arts Group. And yeah, that's this coming Friday, right? And I'll see you back here next week for another issue of the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues. No, for the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. Today is a pastel day, so I can wear anything that has light colors in it. There you go. All right, and I'll see you. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.